live right now, man. It's going down, excited for the season. Live right now, man. It's going down, excited for the season. You know, we coming off a playoff win. I mean,
at least
you know,
we
had a couple
feel
wins.
good because you don't ever want to get swept.
I've never done this. I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
If you ask me, can the Bucks win Game 5? I'd put it at
100%
confidence. Yes.
I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
At this point, we don't know what's going to happen. You can get Game 6. You can steal it.
I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
Winning Game 6 and 7.
I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
I don't think they're going to win the whole series, but
I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
Hello, and welcome to Diaries, a Milwaukee Bucks podcast presented by us, the staff of Brewhoop, coming to the end of our 2024-2025 season preview series. If I time the release schedule right, this should be coming out on literally the day that the season begins for the Bucks, Wednesday, October 23rd. This is a special episode. They've all been special. We want to thank one last time all of our guests from the staff, from other podcasts, Lisa Byington, Jim Paschke, around the Bucks universe for joining us, but I'd be lying if I say this one's not a little extra special because it's just the Dear Diaries crew. This is the one that all the sickos who listen to this podcast, all 100 plus of you, I know you're out there, have been waiting for. It's me, Riley Feldman, one of your usual co-hosts, joined by Kyle Carr, my other usual co-host. Kyle, how are you doing this evening?
Honestly, I'm good. You know, it's been kind of a nice stretch. I've not watched any Bucks preseason basketball, which is probably helpful. I just glanced at the score for tonight's game, and I was like, yep. Why are they losing that badly? Oh, Giannis and Dame didn't play. Okay, problem solved.
I also will admit we should just get all the cards on the table. I haven't watched any preseason basketball either, so it's good because that way our answers to this will not be really impacted by what we've seen in preseason basketball. So I think it's more authentic to what everybody else has had to go through, which is good. Before we get started, so you've taken part in a couple interviews, you've listened to a lot of them. What do you think your sense of like where the fan base is going into this season? Do you think optimistic, pessimistic, somewhere between? Like where are you thinking everybody's kind of at based off of what you've heard and what you've seen around the internet?
I'd say cautiously optimistic. I feel like everyone is expecting top 4 minimum. I feel like everyone's expecting to get out of the first round, which would be nice. Kind of felt like Eastern Conference Finals seems like the top end of what people are expecting. If they get further, great, but it was kind of a cautious optimism of, all right, if the Bucks are healthy, this team could really do some damage, which is a fair assessment. So I don't think anyone's been pessimistic. I just feel like for most fans and kind of feel like just the general idea is we know this team healthy can do something great, but we haven't seen a healthy Giannis in the last 2 playoffs. So let's not get carried away yet, kind of thing.
And on top of that, Chris is already still dead, and yet he's still injured. And we'll see about Dame. I mean, early days, we'll see where the season goes for him. But yeah, I think most people are pretty optimistic. I tend to agree with that. And I think that's good. I like the optimism. New season. Why not shoot high? Why not aim high and hope that they'll do it? Put it all together. So, but now we're getting to us. This is the podcast I've been looking forward to because I've had to kind of keep my opinions to myself a little bit. You've had to keep your opinions to yourself as we answer all these questions. So
Lisa tried. She really tried.
Well, Jackson was free to, yeah. Jackson could let it rip, but yes, I'm glad that you played cards close to the chest because I wanted to keep all the reveals for this. And I have a feeling you and I will have maybe some of the more outlandish takes or maybe a little more off the wall because we've been able to assess what everybody else has said. So I'm looking forward to this. Kyle, we're going to begin right here. We're going to go through our standard set of questions. We'll start with you and then we'll alternate who gets to answer first for each question. But this one first, new Buck you're most intrigued by going into the 2024-2025 regular season?
So I'm actually going to say Tyler Smith. That was always my answer.
Okay, good.
Because here's my logic. If Tyler Smith if what we gathered from a scouting report, if what his skill set and his body can really indicate, this is someone that can come in and basically replace Bobby Portis. Like there is a Bobby Portis replacement on the team. In terms of the offensive skill set, kind of a tallish guy, can stretch the floor, can shoot. probably more someone that's going to need to get their own shot in order to really be effective. Defensively, I think Tyler Smith could potentially be better than Bobby Portis in terms of just more athleticism, seems to be a better rebounder, possibly won't get lost. There's still a work in progress here, but his athleticism gives him a better potential to be a better defender than Bobby Portis. So I'm intrigued by Tyler Smith just because all it takes is one of Giannis, Bobby, or Brook to get hurt for him to potentially get that chance in the backup big minutes. Like, it is that kind of situation. So I'm intrigued because, like I said, best case scenario, they have a Bobby Portis replacement right there. And maybe he can fill in that. So that's going to be my answer. That was actually always going to be my answer.
I think that's awesome that you waited. You were able to uncork the Tyler Smith shot right from the start. I think that's a good tone setter. The other thing about Tyler Smith, the team has not drafted a big, quote unquote, since Thon Maker, right? But Thon had been the last true.
Unless you're counting Mamu.
No. Well, I mean, technically. He was like,
yes,
yeah,
but...
technically yes. But we knew what the score with what the score with Mamu was going to be, and that was an awesome ride for what it was. Shout out to Adam again, one of his favorite players is Mamu. But think of a guy who you might actually expect to have some staying power. Hopefully, first guy since Thon. Thon probably should have been picked 33rd overall in that draft. So we're correcting for that mistake years ago. Now, the thing with Tyler Smith, though, is a lot like AJ Johnson. He's going to be 2 or 3 years down the line, which is not a bad thing because if he is the Bobby Portis or just it doesn't have to. Bobby's the easy guy to compare him to, but any big or just guy who will get into the big rotation. Bobby's probably going to need another. Well, it's not probably. He's going to need another contract after this. It's a possibility the Bucks are the one who pay him. Brook's probably going to be here another season or two, no matter what. Obviously Giannis, so you have the timeline in place already to be able to allow him to develop. So I tend to agree that he's intriguing for a lot of different reasons. Whether or not he puts it together, I mean, who knows? I think AJ Johnson quite clearly has an NBA ready skill, which is being really fast. I don't know if Tyler Smith has a skill right now that she's outside of being big and tall, which is good, but we'll see where it kind of develops from there.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the tough part. AJ Johnson has a lot more rawness to him, but yes, he has the speed that can allow him to be on an NBA court and not completely be out of place. While with Tyler Smith, I feel like he's going to need time just to get used to the speed of the NBA, just because it's not the G League. So you're not going to be able to do as much as you were able to do in the G League. Yes, you at least have that experience playing adults and guys that are scrapping and fighting to get to that next level again, but it's just not the same. Obviously, the skill set is going to be much more different. So I think that's going to be the tough part, is just more how does he adjust to the NBA speed, while with AJ Johnson it's kind of more okay, we know, can your body withstand the NBA? That we're not 100% sure on. We feel like Tyler Smith probably could, but it's just more the speed of the game is going to possibly be what restricts him.
We should note, for everybody keeping score at home, the G League Ignite team that Tyler Smith on was god awful. I think they won 3 games. I mean, they were yes,
it wasn't good.
It was a bad situation. Let's just be honest about it. It's not like he was part of high level winning basketball in the G League, but he has experience. He's young. It's not like Marjan.
Oh, they won 2 games.
Yeah. Okay. It's even more bleak than we thought originally, folks. They won 2 games in the entire G League season. And I guess the thing that you tied to is, okay, G League Ignite was kind of a weird experiment anyhow. At least he's not Marjan, who was 21 when he was coming out. So, I think both guys drafted this year are interesting projects to keep an eye on. And the first guys we've drafted in a long time, where it feels like, 1, they're going to go to Oshkosh quite a bit, and 2, I'm actually going to be incentivized to watch them play in Oshkosh. So shout out to the herd getting some eyes. My pick for this, it's going to be Taurean Prince. Here's the reason why. So not because I'm a Taurean Prince believer at all. I had no opinion. I thought he was dead in the water years ago. Like when he ended up here in Minnesota, I was like, oh, okay, Taurean Prince is on the way out of the league. Then he has a slight renaissance with the Lakers. The reason why he's intriguing to me is he probably has the most important role to fill of the three new free agents, in that if he's not out there able to defend wings or swing guys, it's just Chris. I mean, it's literally just Chris. So you have to hope that Taurean Prince can handle defensive minutes for not a long time, but more than a possession or two. Because of the big three, Giannis, Chris, Giannis, Chris, Dame, Chris is the one that you're most concerned about ramping the minutes up for. You're not sure how available he's going to be throughout the season. So Taurean Prince is going to have to fill in for that kind of wing role a lot. And when the playoffs come, maybe DeLon Wright will prove me wrong, but I just have a feeling Taurean Prince or Giannis is going to get called upon to do that. And Giannis can only be asked to do so much on defense to cover for everybody. So he being Taurean Prince is interesting because he will have a really important role in a league with a lot of great wing players trying to shut that down, or at least slow it down a little bit to help the team keep pace. Gary Trent Jr., he's the Malik Beasley replacement. Okay, straightforward enough. I think obviously his defense for the perimeter defense is huge. DeLon Wright, like every backup point guard, it really depends on the quality of the lead point guard, how important that guy is. I mean, back when we had Eric Bledsoe, it was like, George Hill, please save us. When we had Drew Holiday, it was like, I mean, it'd been nice if obviously Jeff Teague has a few minutes, or DJ Augustine, but that position becomes less important. I think we're in the era with Dame where it's more on that Drew level where it's not going to be as important. So I'm just interested, and I don't have a strong opinion about Taurean Prince. Like I said, I thought his career was over, and here he is with us. So that's kind of where I'm going with new Buck. I'm most intrigued by.
Yeah, I'll dive a little bit deeper into Taurean Prince once we get to like the 2 or 3 or whatever.
Okay, that's cool by me. All right, so you picked Tyler Smith as your young buck, 2 years or less experience. I'll answer this first, but I'll be curious what your answer is. So the next question is young buck who will have the greatest impact on the season. The group primarily is AJ Green. Well, I know what your answer to this question is. AJ Green, AJ Johnson, Andre Jackson Jr., Tyler Smith, Chris Livingston, and Marjon Beauchamp. My answer for this, I think I might pick AJ Johnson. And so I've not watched any preseason basketball, and anybody who makes an answer of this question based off of preseason basketball is a dumbass. So I'm not taking the index of what I've read about preseason basketball and like over indexing it. But it sounds like Ajax has not had a great preseason so far. He did not have a good summer league. I think people were hoping we would see that step forward. We haven't, in terms of him being more than just like a connector guy, fifth player with starters or like veterans. So I fear that he will struggle to find a consistent role in the rotation. AJ Green is the obvious pick here, and I think there's a very good chance that he probably will be the guy because he can shoot. He seemed like he could defend, all of that. But I wonder for AJ Johnson, because he brings such a different pace to the game, if he won't actually get more spot minutes than you expect, and if he doesn't help kind of break games open a little bit in a few of his minutes, I do not think he will have heavy minutes in the playoffs at all. So if you want to incorporate that, I agree that his stock will go down. But I have a feeling Doc Rivers is going to give him a little bit more run than we would probably expect for a rookie. I think Doc's previous experience, even with like Tyrese Maxey, and not saying that AJ Johnson is Tyrese Maxey at all, but in terms of a really athletic guard and just letting him kind of work through things, I think there's precedent for that with this coach in particular. So I'm going to say AJ Johnson. I think it's going to be ugly at times. I think there are going to be flashes, but I also think as an organization, there is such a priority on developing someone who has real upside. And if AJ Johnson, and it's from what I've read, he can hang a little bit physically, even though he's scrawny for the NBA. I think he has a chance to be impactful on the season. Now, that's with the understanding that pretty much none of these guys are going to be super impactful, but that's my going out on the limb.
That's fair. I feel like the thing with AJ Johnson is I feel like he'll be the one that we'll see him a lot in games in Milwaukee. I feel like if they're traveling, if they're on the road, I don't expect him to really be on the roster. I feel like he'll just hang out in Oshkosh, play for the Herd. And if they're playing in Milwaukee, then he'll get some games, or like Detroit or Chicago or Minnesota. Like, I feel like it's going to have to be like Midwest.
Yeah.
But the thing with AJ Johnson is just, yeah, I feel like he could early on in the season get 5-10 minutes to do whatever he needs to. You get a little taste of it, and then Doc's going to probably go, okay, Dame and DeLon Wright, like, it's back to you two kind of leading the charge. So I can see that. It's kind of tough because Andre Jackson Jr., I feel like we want him to be more, and he can be more, but we're just so far, maybe we're asking too much out of him to make that like big leap. And I don't think that's happening. Not to say he won't improve, but I feel like we're expecting him and hoping that he becomes like automatic rotation guy by the end of this year. It's like, maybe. We already know about AJ Green. He's got an NBA skill set. He's good enough defender.
Yeah. I'll let you pontificate in a minute. Yeah. Hold on.
Yeah. So like we already know Marjan, we've already written off. And then it's kind of like
here's my two quick follow. Well, Chris Livingston, no idea. I had high hopes out of Summer League. I haven't heard a peep from preseason, so I'm just going to assume he's not going to happen. Tyler Smith, again, not another guy that's probably not going to happen this year. Two questions. One, do you think Marjan's option for next season will get picked up, or is it not going to get picked up? It's the pickup date is like October 31st, I think.
I feel like he'll get picked up because the alternative is like, I feel like Horst will still try and find a way.
Okay.
To package him in a trade. I still think there's that. I think the organization is still willing to give him chances. I don't understand it. I feel like that's just it's a sunk cost, but yeah, I think they'll pick up his option.
Okay, second question for you on AJ Johnson. Objectively, my answer is horrible, so please nobody kill me for that. But I thought Jim Paschke, when I had him on, it was really interesting when he was talking about AJ Johnson of like how much value there is for a player like him to learn by sitting and hanging out with like a Damian Lillard. So in that context, do you think there's more value in him catching DNP CDs with Milwaukee, but he's like actively working with Dame and the coaching staff all the time? Or is it better for him to go to Oshkosh and like just like tear it up there or try to tear it up there? What do you think is like the more optimal path for a guy like him?
I feel like a guy like him just needs reps.
Yeah, minutes.
I think he just needs minutes because there is talent. Like we've seen flashes of the talent, but he needs to do it consistently. I feel like the best way to do it consistently is just eat all the lumps while you're in Oshkosh. And the thing with being a point guard is whether you are in the G League or it's not like Andre Jackson Jr. is like, okay, you send him to the G League or Marjan where you're sending them there and they're expected to be the guy. And then they come back to Milwaukee and it's like, well, no, you're not going to be the guy because there's Giannis and Chris and all these other players. But with AJ Johnson, it is kind of like it doesn't matter if you're in Milwaukee or in Oshkosh, you're still going to be the point guard. We're still expecting you to, be the playmaker, start the offense, set the tone on fast breaks. Like it's going to be on you. So I think for him, minutes are more important. I understand that aspect of being around Dame, being around the coaching staff, but I feel like he just needs more minutes. We just don't have enough sample size to get an idea of what he actually is or isn't good at. It's like we're getting it from a couple highlights on YouTube. I feel like it's kind of I think he's more someone that needs minutes just so he can kind of get that repetition, kind of expect to be more comfortable with having the ball in his hand, stuff like that.
Yeah. Minutes, not just minutes, but also just like shot attempts. Even in the preseason, his percentages have not been good so far. And he's not afraid to shoot the ball, which is great, but we need to start seeing him make it. And where you're going to have the best opportunity to do that, probably Oshkosh. So I believe in the team doing probably a good job balancing those two things, but I was just curious. Okay. Talk about AJ Green. Go for it. This is your time.
I mean, the thing with AJ Green is he's got, out of all these young players, he has the most NBA skill that is especially in shooting.
Yep.
He is a good enough defender where, yes, is he a great defender? No, but he can hold his own. It's not as though we're throwing a complete loss and he's going to get torched every time. You're kind of like, yeah, we know he's going to get cooked, but he can do this offensively. Like, defensively, he's shown he can at least hold his own. It sounds like he's coming to training camp, putting in the work, like, quote unquote, best shape of his life, everything like that. I've not watched any preseason, so I can't sit here and be like, oh, yeah, he's been killing it in preseason. But I think out of all the players, and we also have to remember when Doc Rivers came in, AJ Green was the one all of a sudden getting those minutes as opposed to Andre Jackson Jr. and Marjan, who were getting those minutes under Adrian Griffin. So it is encouraging that with Doc, he kind of sees like there's this guy and he can bring this. And especially in regular seasons, like you got to get him comfortable because there might be one playoff game where he can just do the Bryn Forbes. Like, okay, you can go win us a playoff game by yourself. Just go 4 of 7 from 3 in like a 3-minute stretch. Like, go do that. Mm-hmm. So I think there is that. Plus, I'm sure he's going to have a contract coming up. So you kind of want to get an idea and get him locked in now because he's going to be another one of those players where if he does really well, you'll probably have to pay him some amount. If he doesn't do well, okay, fine, you cut your loss. But I just think he's the most likely to get the playing time. He's the one that can fill in if Pat Connaughton ever gets traded or he struggles. Like, you can throw him in there. If for some reason Gary Trent Jr. gets hurt, he could be an option to put at the starting two. Like, he is someone that seems the most ready to step into that rotation and not look out of place.
The thing I want to see from AJ Green this season, the shooting, of course, but I want to see him start developing or flashing that feel for the game to be the connector, the passer, because the very obvious guy he will fill in for is Pat Connaughton. If Pat Connaughton is cooked, which I wholeheartedly believe is the case, the truth cannot be controversial. If Pat Connaughton is cooked, AJ Green is the guy that fills in. However, the thing that AJ has not flashed as much as Pat did was like that ability to, whether it be in transition, within the flow of a possession, cutting, passing, whatever it happens to be. Pat was preternaturally at doing that, which is why he was super valuable, even if his defense was largely like doing the flyby, jump block attempts or whatever on the perimeter. So you'll lose that. You won't have the flying by the opponent's shooter, the opposing shooter thing. But if AJ Green can just show a little bit of that connecting, because right now it still feels like, okay, he's moving off ball, yes, to get ready for the 3. And yes, he will dribble to the basket occasionally, but it's primarily just threes, which is fine. That's what he does. Can he start connecting it a little bit more for the guys around him? Because this season, he's on a really team-friendly deal. Next season, he's on a really team-friendly deal. And then it's after that, I think, is when he goes into free agency. So you have this really cost-controlled guy, especially compared to Pat Connaughton's contract. Can he become that connector piece? And I think he has the possibility, but we'll just have to see that, including continuing improvement in the defense. But I feel like it's in a pretty good spot, all things considered.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fair.
Shout out to AJ Green. All right, here we go. Next question. Rank the new free agent signings on how well they will fill the role they'll be given. For everybody at home, as a reminder, DeLon Wright, Gary Trent Jr., Taurean Prince are the 3 names we're reviewing here. Take it away, Kyle.
I'll put DeLon Wright 3rd. And this isn't like any indictment against DeLon Wright. I just feel as though DeLon Wright can come in, he can play the backup point guard, and he can kind of be that defensive option to pair next to Dame in a closing lineup potentially. But we talked about AJ Johnson potentially being someone that can take on those backup point guard minutes. We think Pat Connaughton's going to get a run. So it kind of just feels like as much as the Bucks will need DeLon Wright at times, especially when it gets to the playoffs, I feel like his need and importance is going to be lower compared to the other 2. My second would be Taurean Prince, because as you mentioned, if he can't do it, then Bucks are absolutely screwed at that option. You're probably going to have to look at the trade market to find someone to do it, or really, really hope that Marjan or Andre Jackson Jr. can do it. And so far, we're not 100% sure yet. It feels as though maybe it was more the environment on why Taurean Prince didn't do as well So maybe it's just a factor of, okay, you have Darvin Ham here in Milwaukee. You have a little bit more clarity in your role. You don't have the pressure of having to do extra because there's LeBron and Anthony Davis and you're in LA. So maybe there's like the lowered expectations and reliance could be there. Plus, I mean, he's replacing Jay Crowder, so he's already done a better job at filling the role. So
he's two thumbs up.
He's already surpassed his expectation on being better than Jay Crowder. So there's that. And then I have Gary Trent Jr. first, just because he is going to be that starting 2 guard. He is probably going to be the one that, if he plays really, really well, Milwaukee's going to get a bargain. And he can do what Malik Beasley was able to do, but also add defense. And that's going to be huge for closing lineups. That's going to be huge for just only having 1 or 2 players in the court that can be exposed defensively, as opposed to last year, where you're kind of looking at 3, maybe 4 of them. There's less of the possibility of getting completely exposed defensively, which is something Milwaukee needed to improve. So I'll say those 3. And again, Taurean Prince mainly because he's already surpassed and filled in the role better than Jay Crowder did.
Not to agree too much, but that would be my exact list too. So Gary Trent Jr., right? He's brought in, he's going to be, as you said, Malik Beasley. Malik had a lot of flaws. We just not good on defense at all. It was painful watching him trying to call his own number and drive to the basket in the playoffs. It's like, look, brother, this was not your role all season. This does not need to be your role right now. Once that started happening, you knew the season was over. So if but in spite of all that, Malik Beasley in a lot of ways kicked a lot of ass. Like, I mean, he shot the lights out of the ball at extremely high volume. So on that, he did great. I think Gary Trent Jr. can do that. I think the improvements in willingness and ability to drive to the basket a little bit is something that has value. It's like if you combine, this is a stupid comparison, but like, okay, you had Grayson Allen, who, I I hated when he ever drove to the basket because it was like the most telegraphed move in the world. And he just committed to it. There was no getting out of it or whatever. And then you had Malik, who couldn't do it at all. But Grayson could defend a little bit and Malik couldn't defend at all. So it's like, if you merge those 2 guys, could you get like a Gary Trent Jr. who can drive a little bit, can defend a little bit in theory? And
it might be a worse version. It might be a slightly, like, combining those 2 still might be a slightly worse version of Gary Trent Jr.
Malik Allen or Grayson Beasley, whoever you want to call him, is probably a superior player to Gary Trent Jr. 2024, 2025. But like, okay, the theory of the case is I think that Gary Trent Jr. will be a great fit. He will not be asked to do a lot, but the beauty of this team is guys will be sitting, so he will have the chance to like go off if he wants. So perfect, like, free agent pickup. Taurean Prince. But until proven otherwise, I'm just going to hope that he knows what he's doing and can kind of defend a little bit. And DeLon Wright, it's not anything wrong with DeLon Wright. It's just, what is his role, right? He will be the one who will struggle most to have a defined role because it's like, okay, backup point guard, straightforward enough, bring the ball up the court, create, defends, like, okay, you're there to help cover for Dame. All that makes sense. But I feel like throughout the season in the playoffs, it'll be a little unclear to him and maybe the team, like, well, what's his best spot? Like, where does he fit in best in the rotation? And he may have a wide enough skill set and a creative enough approach to it that he can thrive in that sort of role. But I think that's hard for a lot of bench guys to do. So it's nothing against DeLon Wright. I just think like it will be hard to carve out a specific role for him as it usually is for most backup point guards with the Bucks. And then if he gets to the playoffs and all of a sudden you're like, hey, DeLon, you're our closer now. It's like, okay. I mean, I hope he's ready for that because I'm not sure if that's going to be his role most of the season. I have a feeling Gary Trent Jr. is going to get that until, it goes really poorly for a sustained stretch. So my order is the same as yours, mostly out of the fact that DeLon's going to struggle to carve out a role. Taurean has a role, but I'm not sure if he'll be great at it. And Gary Trent Jr. has a role, and I think he'll be great at it, is the way that I would rank those 3.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair.
Okay. On to the next controversial question. Rank these players in terms of their importance to the season. Dame, Chris, Brooke. Do you have an answer off the top of your head? I've kind of flip flop on this numerous times. I know we've been switching.
Don't.
Okay.
I don't. I feel like I've had a different answer every time I've listened and every time I've asked. I've always had a different answer in my head.
I think I'm gonna. I hope my answer changes every time too, because like people will make their argument. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like I get that for sure, and then I'll hear somebody else like, yeah, that makes sense too. I will say, do I want to say Chris? No, Chris will be least important, which is ironic because I think he is the most important intermediary between Giannis and Dame. So in a certain sense, to make the whole operation work, Chris will be most important. But we have functioned without Chris for over half the season, 2 seasons in a row, and beyond in the playoffs of previous seasons. So I will ding Chris for that. That's not a indictment against Chris, but the team just kind of has to assume he won't be there for a third to maybe half the season some of the time. So least important there. I'll go Brook too. I think his importance on the defensive ends still to this day cannot be minimized. I think if he is not out there, the defense is compromised. And if you try to play a defense differently from the way that he's capable of doing, that is not a good thing. And he's one of the few sort of post presences. He doesn't do it all that often, but it's still there a little bit to spell a few minutes. I think that's valuable. And then Dame feels like the easy answer, but it's the obvious one because if he can put together a great season and figure out how to play with Giannis, that's obviously the whole reason we brought him here. So if he has another down season, i.e. season with numbers and efficiency similar to last year, where he has a great game, every couple of weeks, once a week, twice a week, maybe, but there's a couple of games where it's a dud or it's like, oh, he's like the chemistry's not really there. I think that will hamper the team pretty quickly. And so I would go Dame, Brook, Chris, although I am quite open to any other combination of the three. And I think a lot of people have made great cases for why it should be a different order.
I think I'm going to go Chris third, only because I feel like Chris raises the floor the most out of these three, but Chris's ceiling, I think, is the most restrictive, if that makes sense. Like, he does not have as high of a ceiling as Damon Brook, but I feel like, as we've seen in the playoffs, his floor is, he can raise the floor, Milwaukee's floor better. Like, if Chris is solid, that's good. Like, we've seen Chris at the very least be more or less solid. Like, we don't get as many clunker of games from Chris as we used to. So I think that's important.
Especially in the playoffs. Like if you have Chris out there and literally everybody else is dead, he will get you to 6 games and maybe 7 games, like almost not completely by himself, but largely as the guy in a series.
I mean, he basically did 5 games on his own. Yes, I mean, Dame had the one game. Dame had the one game, but otherwise, like,
injury and whatever. Yes. Yeah. Chris is still capable. You're exactly right. He is the floor raiser. If he's out there, he will you will be able to get through most of his series. It maybe not win it, but you're going to be like in it for the most part, or at least competitive with him out there. So yes, I agree with that.
Yeah. So I got that. And then I'm going to do Dame second. The reason why I'm going Dame second is primarily if Dame is on, Milwaukee's offense will completely go to another level. And that his offense alone could probably win playoff games and potentially a playoff series. We saw like what a locked in, unguardable Dame looks like, and that is 34 points and a half. That's pretty ridiculous. I mean, granted, we didn't get to see that after that, but we know what a locked in Dame can give you. And I think he's going to have a better season. I think he's going to show that last year was kind of more of a one-off as opposed to that's the new norm for him. And the thing is, he was relatively healthy until that final week. Yep. So it's not as though before it was the bigger question was going to be is he going to be healthy enough? And he was, but unfortunately that just didn't carry over into the playoffs. So I think there's that aspect. And I think with Dame, it's also there's still issues on his defense. That's not to say it's not for lack of try. It's just he is going to get exposed defensively. We've seen him be targeted in point of attack. So there is still that issue as a part of it. So I think there's that. And then I have Brook first because Brook's defense is what keeps Milwaukee in one piece, more or less. Like, it is truly the most bend, don't break. Like, if Brook is on, the defense is great. If Brook is slightly off, Giannis has to do a lot more. So I think Brook's defense is so important for Milwaukee. If Brook's defense goes, Milwaukee goes. And he still gives you enough on offense. And we still got to remember, he is still a big dude. Yes, he can shoot the ball. But if Doc decides, you know what? If Doc and the team are like, we have a mismatch here, give Brook the ball in the post, let him do the work, Brook can do it. So I think just because of Brook's offensive, I feel like Brook can bring more, that if he's dialed in, he himself can keep Milwaukee's defense put together and make it an elite defense, and his offense can be able to get to a level that is enough so it's not just on Giannis and Dame to provide, and Chris. Like, you can give it to Brook as well. He can be the fourth scoring option, and he can. We've seen him do well in the post. We know it. I think there's been times where, like, just give Brook the ball in the post and let him do that. Instead of chucking up a bunch of threes.
The thing about Brook is, and this is why this is a good argument for it, is if Brook isn't available for whatever reason, injury or whatever, God forbid, you thought everybody was very concerned. Okay, we got to dial back Giannis's like usage, how much we're running him out there. If Brook is unavailable for any stretch of time at all, God help us, because who is going to fill in for that? I mean, Tyler Smith is intriguing. He's not going to be the guy. Bobby Portis, God help us. I mean, you know, Bobby has his role. Being the center is not that role. So then it falls on Giannis, and Giannis has to do the hardest work of anybody on the floor. Then at that point, covering the other big. So even if you were just to say, what if Brook's like a complete zero in the playoffs? If he absorbs enough of the pressure throughout the regular season to make sure Giannis is available for the playoffs, that easily shoots him up as like the most important of the three, because what you're trying to pick out of this is who enables Giannis to be there in the playoffs, because that's what we need more than anything else. Like, yes, of course, Dame being great would be awesome, but Giannis being available is critical. If Brook is unavailable, that's just more pressure on Giannis. So I think that is, like I said, it's another great argument like that. That's why you do that combination of the three. And I know I would have loved over the past couple seasons for them to start figuring out what's the post Brook plan. They still haven't figured that out. Maybe
there is no plan.
There is no plan. There isn't. Brook's just going to continue to be here. But so long as he's here, he anchors the defense. And the other thing too, like you were saying with the defense, this team will only compete for a title if they are top 15 in both offense and defense. Ideally top 10 in both, because it's historically extremely difficult for a team to win a title if they aren't both of those things. The defense was horrific last season for a lot of different reasons. Brook is the reason, or a large reason, why they might be at least in the upper half of the league defensively, and they absolutely need to be that if they intend on competing for a title. So I like your list as well.
Yeah, I feel like Dame and Brook can kind of just, you can flip-flop just depending on what your feelings are towards it, I guess.
Yeah. I agree. Okay. Next one. What is the team's current greatest weakness? I'll let you answer this one first.
Ironically, I'm not going to say Doc Rivers. I don't think he's their greatest weakness.
He's on the short list. He's on the short list.
He made the top three. He is on the podium. He is on the podium.
Congratulations, Doc. Congrats.
Athleticism.
Okay.
Now, maybe they'll fix that with the additions of AJ Johnson and Tyler Smith and Gary Trent Jr. and Tor. Like, it seems like they tried rectifying that. But until I can, like, in terms of the players that they're going to rely on the most, like, Giannis is still pretty athletic, but it's not like he's at his athletic peak. He is going to be 30. Like, he is getting older. Chris, even when healthy, not athletic anymore. Brook is somehow still held together with duct tape on his back. So he's there's still that. Dame is still, he's definitely getting older, not as athletic. And then you're looking at like guys like Bobby, doesn't really have the quickness. Pat, not as much of it, not as not more than an athlete. So we got that. And then I mean, like, yes, DeLon Wright and Torian Prince, like, but the guys that they're relying on, there's still a lot of question marks over athleticism, and that's what we saw get exposed last year against the Pacers. So I think it's that simple. So I think a lot of the issues Milwaukee had last year is they were not athletic enough, and the core players that they were going to rely on have a lot of question marks on their athleticism. And I think even Giannis has questions because it's like, all right, you've had all these injuries. How much is that going to affect you? Plus, you're getting older. Like, you're not going to be able. You're still stronger than most people, but you're not strong and fast enough potentially to just overwhelm other defenders.
I think you can say athleticism. That's also code for the team is old as shit, which is factually correct and and based off of whoever the 8-man or 9-man is, the only guy who's under the age of 30 will be Gary Trent Jr. Everybody else is 30 plus years old by the end of the season. So, yeah, and like. Not great. There was like times, I mean, obviously Giannis was the most athletic guy. It was like Giannis, then Drew, then it was like Pat Connaughton was number 3 in terms of most athletic when we won the title. Pat, again, assuming Pat is cooked, hashtag not more than an athlete, which is amazing. We need to get a breaking tea on that one for sure. I don't know who qualifies for it. So I think that is a super valid weakness. Mine is going to be perimeter defense. So Gary Trent Jr., I think for me, it's more so the idea of what his defense is. I will be the first to raise my hand and say, I was not watching terrorist basketball. I know you weren't watching terrorist basketball. You actually were actively advocating against terrorist basketball during Nick Nurse in Toronto. And it was you were in the vanguard of the anti-terror basketball movement, and we salute you for that, and we need to respect that history. So Gary Trent Jr. had easily, his best seasons as a defender while playing terror basketball. So how does he fit here? And if he is not, it feels like we've almost put so much on Gary Trent Jr. to be like, look, this guy's going to go, he's going to fix the defense, like not fix it, but he's going to go a long way to making sure we weren't completely horrible. And what if he isn't? And then who do we go? Okay, again, it's DeLon Wright, but we kind of already promised Gary Trent Jr. a starting role and probably a lot of minutes. So you can't even get DeLon Wright out there for lots of opportunities. Dame is probably like a D level to a D- level defender most nights. I mean, just to be honest about it. And there was a lot of extra issues to the defense last season, i.e. Brooke getting switched on to Tyrese Halliburton like 30 feet out and being like, all right, we're just going to rock with this, that I think we can correct this season. But I'm really worried that the perimeter defense, which was one of the calling cards to one of the elite defenses in the league the past couple seasons, is not fixed still, no matter who we throw out there, primarily because of who the point guard is, and because I am not sure how Gary Trent Jr. fit in. So my current greatest weakness is the perimeter defense, because if that is busted again, it falls, much like with Brooke, that has consequences down the road and literally down the court, because now Brooke has to do more. If Brooke is unavailable, okay, Giannis has to do more. Even if Brooke is available, Giannis is going to have to clean up a lot more. So all of that combines, and I just think we have a lot of great guard talent in the league right now, and there's going to be a lot of nights where it's like, God, we cannot, like, whoever this is, even if you stop him, he's probably going to load up on assists and really get the rest of the team going. So I'm just worried about that. And I don't think there's a solution outside of Gary Trent Jr. truly proving that he is that guy defensively, or even just like a good defender. He doesn't have to be, obviously not Drew Holiday levels, but can he be a good defender? That would go a long way to assuaging that concern.
Yeah, and I feel like at this point, it's kind of like, I don't even know about good. I just need to be competent at this point. Like, that's the problem. Like,
yeah.
Competent will probably be enough.
Mm-hmm.
So, the perimeter defense is definitely like the big question mark, because there's not a lot of exciting prospects of, okay, we can, like, we'll have, like, yeah, Gary Trent Jr. might be good, and that's great, but everyone else that's going to be playing in the backcourt, DeLon Wright is probably going to be fine, but I don't think he's going to be like great.
stopper. He's not gonna be a stopper.
No, it's not like we're gonna be like, all right, go out there and guard Jaylen Brown for 35 minutes. Like, no.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anyone on this roster at that level. Like, we're gonna make Gary Trent Jr. be that guy. Like, okay, go guard Jaylen Brown for 30 minutes. All right, go guard whatever bum the Sixers want to throw out there as a 2 guard. I don't know, but like, I feel like that's gonna be the issue.
Yeah, it's going to be like Gary Trent Jr. Can he slow down Tyrese Maxey? Yes or no? Like, that's going to be the question a lot of nights. And that's what he signed up. I mean, he has to know what he signed up for, and that's going to be part of it. And if he does well, that will only mean more good things for him in terms of a contract getting out of here. So I think there's a lot of incentive for it to go well, but I'm not sure if he's that guy. And like, back to the young guys, AJ Green can hold his own in certain circumstances, but he is not like a stopper, nor is he going to be like a solution out there. Ajax is interesting, but until he puts it together, it's not something.
But is that really going to be? Is that going to be someone that can play? Like, are we going to expect him to do that like on the perimeter
in extensive minutes? I mean, I'm not like perimeter for like 3 possessions. I'm not talking like 6, 7, 8 minutes at a go, and when it matters, and that's not going to be Ajax this season, no matter how good it goes. So yeah, I think that's all fair points to make. So we'll see, but that's what I'll be keeping an eye on, and it will be the thing about the weaknesses. I mean, yours will be a little bit long term watching over the season. I have a feeling we're going to get a pretty good sense pretty quickly as to whether or not the perimeter defense is going to be something to be like really concerned about during the season. So we'll find out pretty quickly on that. Okay. Yeah. Next up, we'll throw this one. Not all our guests got to answer this, but Lisa forced our hands and wanted us to be positive as well. Shout out to Lisa for this. What is the team's current greatest strength? I think people just answered Giannis. Or at least I would answer Giannis. In terms of like teams, like overall great strength is in terms of like a team characteristic.
I got one.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, you go for it.
I'm going to say continuity.
Okay.
I think there's enough continuity in this team that can allow them to really thrive. I mean, if you look at it, 4 of your starting 5 players are there. And in the case of Giannis, Chris, and Brooke, they've been playing together now like 6 seasons together.
Yep.
So you have that. You have Pat Connaughton, who has been there for about 6 seasons. So it's kind of one of those where you have enough guys, like Bobby Portis has now been here for a couple of years. Pat Connaughton has been there for a couple of years. Yep. You have enough continuity where these guys know how to play each other. And now it's just like, okay, you got to plug and play. So you plug in Gary Trent Jr., you're going to plug in DeLon Wright, you can plug in Taurean Prince, you'll plug in, AJ Green on. Like, you have others that you can kind of throw in there. And instead of trying to like completely start over, you've had all the half of last year to make it work with Doc Rivers. And I think that's one of the benefits for him is like, yeah, you get that ability to kind of run it back. And it's not as though you're having to reinvent the wheel again. Because I think that was also part of the problem last year is you bring in Adrian Griffin. And I think they would have done better defensively if they had kept Drew Holiday and Grayson Allen. Yes. But I think the issue then became you brought in Adrian Griffin, who was bringing in a whole new defense. And then you completely changed the personnel by trading for Dame, which was still the right decision, but you had to make a big change there. So I think there was that aspect of it as well. So I think continuity is going to be their biggest strength because, I mean, there's not that many teams in the East that can say the same. Like Boston, yes. A lot of the players from Boston are going to be able to come back to do that. And Indiana, yes, as well. But otherwise, I mean, New York's going to have to figure it out with Cat. Like, they're going to have to figure that out. The Sixers are going to have to find a way to put in Paul George and assuming Joel Embiid's even going to be healthy enough. I don't think even Miami, it's not as though they're going to bring back a lot of good. Cleveland, it's like, yeah, they're bringing back a lot of players, but they got a new coach. So I do think there is that benefit of having enough continuity and having a core of guys that know how to play together.
That's a good one. I think mine would be, I keep thinking like unity of purpose. I think having something to prove. So we have a superstar, 2 superstars actually, because Giannis, I think, always feels like he has something to prove. He always wants to win a title. Dame, I think this is like one of the most make or break years in Dame's entire career. It may be the make or break year because people are going to look at it. And as much as everybody gave a lot of understanding and grace to him last season, understandably so, I have a feeling people will be a lot more fickle this season, no matter what the situation is. But you have a lot of guys here who have something to prove in terms of needing to go out and like show they can win convincingly, win a title for legacy purposes, for even just getting paid next season purposes for some of these guys, continue to have an NBA career. I feel like that is something that could be a driving purpose for a lot of the guys throughout the season. I'm hoping it is. I continue to say that Dame's attitude in particular will be really critical to the direction of the team. Giannis will set the initial pace. How much does Dame really contribute to that? Dive into that, because it's hard as somebody outside of the organization to get a real good read on Dame because he's just kind of nonplussed all the time, which is fine. But I believe in his competitive spirit and that he really truly wants to make it work. I've never believed that or never thought that he didn't want to, but I hope this season the desire to really prove a point in the regular season, even like it's not just about winning a title. Obviously, that's the ultimate goal, but it's like you shouldn't be spending most of the season kind of just fucking around and like you end up 40, 48 and whatever, like 48 and 34. Like you should be going out there aiming 50 plus wins at a minimum, and you should be stomping some teams out with the amount of talent that we have here. So I'm hoping the creative strength is a lot of these guys have things to prove. Even the guys who were here for the title run, I mean, that was how many years ago, and now we're back to like clowning on them or being like, oh, what the hell are you doing? Like, what have you done for me lately? That's the unfortunate world of sports, but all these guys have something to prove for this team and for in terms of basketball as well.
I was gonna say there is no reason why they can't go in and beat the living crap out of the Houston Rockets. There's no reason why they can't go in and beat the living crap out of the Chicago Bulls. Like the teams that they are just significantly better than. I don't want what happened last year. It kind of segues. They should be beating teams convincingly that they know they're better than. And that was one of the issues last year. It was like, why are we scraping? But at what point do we stop saying, okay, a win is a win? And like, all right, you got to go out there. And I want them to blow teams out. I want the 2019-20 Bucks where they just went in and it's like, we don't care who you are. We are going to win by 20 plus. We're going to put in the victory lineup with 5 minutes left and it's going to be fine. I want that.
At any one time, half of the league is like borderline horrible. I mean, not like not completely irretrievable, but there are a lot of young teams, bad teams that are tanking. Tanking isn't as bad as it used to be in terms of like just outright like, oh my God, they're really going for it. But there is at any given time about half the league in either conference that you as a contender should just be blowing the doors off of. Like, okay, you're going to, I mean, how many games against like the Wizards, the Grizzlies, the Hornets, the whoever? It's like, okay, this or the Nets. This is way closer than it has any right being. Or we're losing to them. Like, how are you losing to the Grizzlies? I know it's right before the All-Star break, but like games
I don't
like
care.
that cannot be acceptable. Like that is not the standard. And that's easy for us, a couple of podcast dorks to say, but that's for them, their own selves, their own competitive selves. You need to be going out against like half the league and convincingly beating them, and then the other upper half like needs to be competitive to probably beating a lot of them as well. Like that just straight up is what you need to have, and we did not see that pretty much at all last season. Okay, speaking of things that you want to see this regular season, good segue. Something you hope to see the Bucks do during the regular season is blank. The purpose of this is most of us at the staff have to watch 82-ish games plus games a season. You and I, because we podcast weekly, try to watch most of the games to have a clue what we're talking about. So what's like a niche thing, or maybe not even niche thing, but something that you would like to see the Bucks do that would keep you interested as a viewer, as an analyst throughout the regular season?
I truly want, kind of like what I said, I want games that they should be winning to comfortably win. That is what I want. I could care less about, if they play the Celtics and unfortunately lose, whatever. It's annoying, but I will suck it up. but I don't want to go into a game against Memphis and they get the doors blown off by dudes I've never heard of. Like, that cannot happen. That is going to piss me off too much. I want them to go in and beat the living crap out of the Nets. If I'm going to watch them play the Nets on a Tuesday night in January, I want this game over by the third quarter. Like, that is truly what I want to see from them. I want them to not play around with their food. Like, I want them to be a professional team and go about their business and do what they're supposed to do and what they are expected to do. Because there's too many times last year where I was openly questioning what effort is this team putting in. I remember against the Rockets on the road, I sat there and I was like, it seems like they do not care. They did not put in any effort. And then Giannis came in and went on his own run. I was like, oh, now everyone started to play well. I was like, but why wasn't that happening from minute one? Like, it should not take you guys to realize, oh, we might lose this, to try and put it all together. So for me, I want them to go and have professional games where they go in against a Brooklyn team or Detroit and beat the crap out of them. And I don't have to sit here and wonder, like, I don't have to go and wonder, well, a win is a win, it's fine. So that's truly what I want.
The reality of the situation is we're grown-ass men. You're a man, you have a full-time job, you have 2 kids, you have pets, you have cable bill, you have bills to pay.
I got
you
bills.
You got bills. You do not want to be tuning into that West Coast start time. It's against whomever, and the team is just half-assing it. We don't have the time for it anymore. I'm not a college kid. I can't stay up till 2 a.m. and then rise 4 hours later and get ready to rock for the rest of the day. I can't do it anymore. So for my sanity's sake, just be better. Just be better. My thing is, I want to see so much Dame Giannis pick and roll that it makes me sick to my stomach, because I saw it grow as the season ended. And I'm like that Leo DiCaprio gif where he's sitting and then he points at the screen or whatever. Whenever the pick and roll would happen at the end of the season, my wife would be like sitting with me, like, look, they just did it. And of course she doesn't care at all, respectfully, right. and completely understandably. But it's like, can we just make this work? I have invested so much of my heart into this stupid pairing working. And I didn't even know this was going to be a pairing for real up until like 365 days ago. But now that it's real, can it just work, please? Like, how cool would that be? Wouldn't it be cool? Like, that was the whole reason I was in Greece when the news came across. I just got done meeting and speaking with Stone Age. Shout out to Stone Age. I asked him 8 hours before the Dame trade happened. I was like, oh, would you ever trade for Dame? He's like, oh, I don't know about that. And then the Dame trade happens. Let's make it happen, because how cool would that be? It would be awesome. And I just want to see so much pick and roll, because I think it's hard to stop. I think it would be great to develop Giannis's skill as that like off ball, make his life a little bit easier. Dame keeps involved, even if he's not the one scoring. Like, it's still satisfying because his direct action leads to the score, and then it also opens up space for him. I just think the benefits of it are so great that I just want to see that set run a lot throughout the regular season. I don't know if I'm going to be sitting every game and keeping a tally of how often they run it and like updating every week on the podcast, but it should just be a high number. I don't know what that number is, but it should just be high. I just want to see the Dame Giannis pick and roll, please.
I feel like I've just stopped trying to think that's going to happen. Like, I've kind of felt like, all right, if it happens, great. But I'm done trying to like hitch it all there. It's a lot like we're down so bad when you and I get on this podcast. It's like, damn, wouldn't it be like, I think we need to go to the Brook post-ups. Like, that might have to be the way we save the season. Like, we'll be in the playoffs and we'll get on the podcast and be like, yo, can Brook save the season by playing in the paint right now? Like, that's and then it never happens. Inevitably, it does not happen. And because it's too little too late.
Yes. When you're breaking that glass, and I don't think Dame Giannis is the same as Brook post-ups in terms of save the season or like break glass, but it is one of those. It's like, it's a lot like with Dame and Giannis. There was so much to that pairing last season that just didn't happen. And so we need to see tangible progress, tangible evidence that it's happening this season. It sort of did in fits and starts, but not sustainable last season. any sort of sustainable pairing between those two. For God's sake, please make it easier for us to watch the games.
Right. We're not asking much. We swear.
I'm really not asking the world. I think it's at this point not an unreasonable thing to ask. Okay. Let's start entering into the end stage questions here. In order for the Bucks to win a title this season, they must blank. Our qualifier in this has always been don't answer win 16 games in the playoffs. I will hold both of us to that standard as well. In order for the Bucks to win a title this season, they must have Giannis expand his game. So what do I mean by that? I mean, he's not 30 yet, but he will be soon. We have to be moving past the bull rush. We just have to. We have seen, much like for the things we were just talking about, Damian's pick and roll, Brooks saving the season in the paint. We have seen fits and starts of Giannis having a wider offensive game in terms of playing playing in the post, on the baseline, whatever. Like in the final Bud season, there were moments like, okay, or like the year before that, Giannis really putting stuff together in terms of like his play on the baseline. He needs to get comfortable with the idea of not giving up total control. Obviously, the only way we're going to win a F load of games is if he is leading the way, but I want him to take on the personal challenge of walking the walk of integrating Dame in particular, integrating his teammates, because I understand in years past, a lot of it has come down to, hey, everybody else is dead out here. They're just not doing anything for us. They're actively losing the game. Giannis, you need to save us. And he won us a title. So I understand his mentality, but in order for the Bucks to win a title this season, he's got to start expanding his game. And in a lot of ways, dialing back his usage, but being much more useful for all of his teammates off the ball, setting screens, creating space with the pick and roll, whatever that happens to be. So not even just health. He just has to expand his game. Because if you get to the playoffs, he's healthy, but he's just doing the bull rush thing. I'm sorry, that's just not going to cut it in year what, 12 for him now? Year 11, year 12 for him? That's just not going to cut it anymore. It hasn't cut it in a long time, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair because I feel like that's been the biggest thing. Like what we were saying, like Giannis's athleticism is going to start waning. And we're going to need him to become a Giannis 2.0. And we know he's capable of doing it. We know he can do it. We just need him to do it now. Like the last two postseasons that he hasn't been a part of, there has been this lingering question in my head, like, okay, if Giannis wasn't going balls to the wall with the bull rush, does he get hurt? Probably still in some way, shape, or form, because, I mean, the Solis injury, that's more overuse. Him getting undercut by Kevin Love, freak accident, I guess. But we also saw it against the Hawks in the year they won the title. And we saw it the year before against the Miami Heat. It's like if you really think about the last 5 years, for them, he has been hampered by injury one way or the other. It's just that in 2021, he was able to recover in a way that I still do not understand and won a title. So I think there is that aspect of it where now it's kind of Giannis has to be healthy. And in order to be healthy, he might have to change the way he plays.
He'll go into the playoffs. Even if he goes into the playoffs healthy, the way he plays is just begging any given possession for him to pick up an injury. As you said, like of those four out of the 5 seasons, the only season he didn't was the 2022 against the Bulls and the Celtics. And he almost got us there against the Celtics, but ultimately it wasn't enough. But even when he makes it to the playoffs healthy, there's the possibility he gets injured because he can be reckless at times, even at age 29. And I'm hoping sooner rather than later, the reality that will start to set in. And it's dumb. I mean, obviously, of course, Giannis is going to be the reason we win a title. But it should be driven home like as many times as possible. The only reason we are winning a title is because of Giannis. It will not be because of Dame. It will not be because of Chris. It will not be because of Brooke. It is because of Giannis. And so given that and the reality of the injuries he's picked up and the fact that he's aging, we need to start seeing some more expansion, some more purposeful expansion to his game.
I agree with that. My answer. So in order for the Bucks to win a title, They must get positive contributions from their bench.
It's a good one too.
Because if you think about when they won the title, the first round against Miami, it was Bryn Forbes outscoring Jimmy Butler. It was Bryn Forbes being a human torch. In the round against Brooklyn, you can even technically, yes, PJ Tucker was starting at that point, but when the Bucks acquired PJ Tucker, he was going to be that guy off the bench. Like, he was supposed to be like that defensive ace off the bench. And they still got enough from the other bench guys to do it and get through. That was probably the one series I was like, that was more like Giannis, Chris doing just enough to get you over the line, and Brooke. Like, it was like they did just enough to get you through it. And then you get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Giannis goes down. Who steps up? Bobby Portis in that game 5. Probably the best game he has played in his career. And you get that. You get to the finals. Pat Connaughton. He gets a Mike Breen bang. Like, it was, you needed contributions from someone on the bench every single round. Yep. And that's what allowed Milwaukee to win the title. Because, yes, if Giannis is on top of his game, you have a much higher chance. But we have also seen Giannis be at the top of his game and everyone else not contribute in any way, shape, or form. They lost to Boston because of that. Yep. So I think for me, they need to get good contributions from Taurean Prince. They need to get good contributions from Bobby Portis, from DeLon Wright, from AJ Green. Like, you need those guys, Pat Connaughton even, potentially. Like, you need those guys. And it doesn't have to be all of them at the same time. Again, one each series might be enough. Like, if Giannis, Dame, Brooke, and Chris are healthy, you just need one of those guys off the bench to come in, give you 15 minutes of good contributions. Because I think that was also what down Milwaukee last year. It's like you had to start throwing a bunch of guys off the bench. You threw Patrick Beverley for the bench into the starting lineup. You're throwing Jay Crowder. Obviously, the last 2 years, Jay Crowder is better off just not playing. Like, the Bucks are better off just having 4 guys on the floor. But Bobby Portis was struggling. Like, you have all, like, Bobby Portis was also starting. Like, so last year was just that. So I think they need to get good contributions from their bench players. And it doesn't need to be like George Hill in the Raptors here. Again, George Hill could have possibly saved Milwaukee's season. He saved against the Celtics that year in 2019. He could have saved it probably against the Raptors if one or two things break differently.
Yep. I like the idea that, like, the best way to use Jay Crowder in 2024 is like that Vivek Ranadive idea of, like, just have him be the cherry pick guy on the other side. And Jay would still find a way to mess that up. Like,
he would still miss the layup. He would miss the open corner 3.
Or he'd bobble the pass. Like, he just wouldn't be able to catch the
out of
pass.
bounds when he caught the ball.
Shout out to you, Jay. I think Jay has some staying power with the podcast for, like, a long time. Like, that's how bad it was. Like, at least Semi Ojale, like, that was just a 1-year experiment and we didn't give up anything for that guy. But Jay Crowder, I mean, all right, well, Jay will be with us throughout the season. So long as Kyle draws breath, Jay Crowder will be with us.
For better or worse.
For better or worse. There's a reason why, outside of just jokes, we do the 8-man rotation exercise. Because when it came to winning time, I mean, the season was on the line. We were either going to win a title or go home losers. They had literally like 7 to 8 players, and you needed contributions. Like you said, not every single game. Ideally, at least one of those guys a game steps up. And this is how basketball is. How many times do you watch a finals game or a playoff game and just like random bench guy X goes off for like a stretch in a game? And it's like, oh, well, and then in the post game analysis, people like, oh my God, when Bobby Portis or Pat Connaughton had that stretch in the second quarter, like that was where it really made the difference. So this is a really good point. I think you're the first person that said you got to get the bench contributions. There's a reason why you have a 15-man roster, because you're not going to use all of them, but at least half of them need to be playable. They need to be able to contribute. And we have seen from a lot of these guys situations in which they don't contribute. You have 3 wild cards and the new free agents to see how they fit in. I think for the starters, for the most part, the guys hold over, and we'll see about Gary Trent Jr., but we feel comfortable that they are going to contribute something or another throughout a series, throughout a playoffs. What do the bench guys do? And that's why we do the 8-man rotation. Not because, I mean, partially because it's funny and it's like, oh my God, who do I hate
absolutely.
now? Yeah, it's mostly, it's a lot of jokes, but there is a kernel of truth because that's what it gets to. And it's not 5-man rotation. If it was 5-man rotation, it'd be easy. If 8-man is why you have to pick who do I think will be able to like help save the season in a 5-minute stretch in a game in a playoff series. That's why we do the exercise. So I think that's a really good shout out and something that is an open question. It's always been an open question. We've had moments from Bobby. We've had moments from Pat. We don't know about the free agents and then whoever else you want to throw into your 8-man rotation exercise. But yeah, shout out to the bench. I hope they put it together this season, at least a little bit. Yeah, okay.
Or at least try. Give me one moment.
Give us one more Mike Breen bang moment, please. For God's sake, Pat Connaughton. Let's resurrect it. Let's make it happen. Okay, final question of the evening. Predict the teams finish in the East and how far they go in the playoffs. As a reminder, I pulled up the standings from last season. I'll just read it off from the Eastern Conference just for the top 4. Celtics first overall, 64-18 on the season. Knicks were second with 50-32 record. Bucks third, 49-33. Cavs were fourth at 48-34. And then the difference between the Bucks at the 3rd seed and the Heat at the 8th seed was just 3 games. So it was really tight in about the middle section. Like pretty much 2nd seed to 8th seed was separated by 4 games. Really tight in the East with one clear, obvious top team in the Celtics. What are you thinking, Kyle, in this year in terms of finishing the East, how far they go in the playoffs?
They finished 2nd and they're going to the finals.
Okay.
I truly think it will all come together. I don't know why I have this much optimism. I just think Giannis will be healthy enough. Chris will be healthy enough. I think a lot of these guys will be healthy enough to get the job done. And Dame's going to be better. Brooke is going to be like, I feel like they will get enough to get through. I don't know. Like I said, I don't have any reason to believe that this team could beat Boston in a 7-game series. But there's just gut feeling in me where if I'm going to be wrong, let me at least be wrong with being optimistic as opposed to being wrong and they're going to bomb out in the first round again. So they'll make the finals. I don't think they'll win it because I think they'll face Denver, and I think Denver will beat them. And that's what I got. They're going to the finals.
I will say 3rd seed. I believe in them winning more than 49 games. I'm not sure who the 2nd seed will be. I think Celtics will be the 1st seed again. I don't think that's super controversial, even if they kind of loaf around a little bit. I think the Knicks are going to take time to gel. I think the Sixers are going to take time to gel. But there's a possibility of one of the other teams who was just beneath the Bucks having a slightly better season. But so I think 3rd seed, man, I'll go for finals too. Why not? You're right. Let's be optimistic about it. I think there is a certain level of you need to be humbled. You need to have humility. You need to go through the defeats. There were a number, I mean, obviously 2019, 2020, before the 2021 season of the defeats, borderline humiliation in some of those situations to come out and finally put it all together. And yes, there was a lot of luck on that run, but I have a feeling last season will look a bit of an aberration compared to this year. And the Bucks may not even need to be the ones that have to defeat the Celtics. Who knows? Maybe there's something that goes elsewhere in a different series. I guess if it was the 3 seed, though, they would have to face them eventually. But
they wouldn't face them until the finals.
They would the finals. Yeah. So I have a feeling that it will come together as well. I don't want to make a prediction about whether or not they win a title because I just don't know about that defense. I think I will put that answer in pencil with like a willingness to change it up pretty quickly early in the season, depending on
got the eraser side ready to go now.
Yes. But I think we're in it to win it. I mean, why not say they're going to go to the finals? I think realistically an Eastern Conference Finals appearance would be satisfactory, but man, I mean, Dame's not getting any younger. Giannis isn't getting any younger. Obviously, the rest of the team is getting younger. If not now, when? So let's aim for the finals. I think they can do it. And I will not predict whether or not they will win or lose, because if they make it to the finals, that is a close to crowning achievement for this team based off of last season and the year before that, frankly. So
it's fair. Yeah, like I said, I'm just I'm going to say they lose to the Nuggets. That's going to be my feeling on it.
I don't even know who to really pick coming out of the West. I think will be the Mavs again. I don't know. If it is the Mavs, I feel pretty good about that matchup. It'll be very interesting. Though I guess, do I really want to see Luka Doncic killing Taurean Prince for 48 minutes? Maybe I'm not interested in that. So, okay. Well, that brings us to the end. And any final questions that have been kind of percolating in your mind as this exercise has gone on, Kyle? Any final thoughts before we kick off this regular season here?
I think the biggest thing is going to be. I do have a question, actually. I do have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Would you rather the team start off terrible, and by terrible, I mean like things aren't looking great, they're struggling to get there? Would you rather them do that, and then get better by the time it gets to like playoff time, or would you rather them get off to a hot start and then kind of limp towards the end?
I would rather they be terrible at the start because that'll give us a lot more to talk about. Like I want us to have a count of how many days until you do your first look. We might need to think about Doc Rivers. Then I want to see how quick we get there. I just do not. I have never believed in, and I really, as now a 30-year-old man in the year 2024, cannot believe in flipping a switch. Either you know what you're doing by the end of the season, or you're asking to get pantsed in front of the entire nation and the world. So I would rather them suck relative to expectations at the start of the season, and me get to March and April and be like, okay, they really have a clue what they're doing. This is good. So I would rather that. As nice as it would be to like have a like 15-3 start to the season and be like, yo, the Bucks are for real. That would be great. But then once they start like kind of falling off, I'd be like, oh, it's kind of hard. And then we'd have that awkward discussion at the end of the season. Like, well, they were really good at the start of the year. Maybe let's just be that again. So I would rather they struggle relative to the expectations and start putting together over time.
I'm the same way, just because also if they can get it together by the end of the season, then I'm going to be like, all right, it's all in. So
I just want to go into playoffs and be like, we have a real shot. I don't want to be interviewing with the guys from the Pacers world and be like, oh, this I don't know if we're going to be able to get through this series or not. So, and I see that one of the boys has joined us here.
Yes, we have
Sterling.
Not a thrilled Sterling at the moment, but
okay. Well, we'll wrap it up here real quick. This is the last second, because this is coming out on opening day. So Bucks schedule this week: Wednesday, Sixers on the road, at home against the Bulls on Friday, on the road against the Nets on Sunday. Kyle, what's the record this week?
3-0, because they're not losing to a fraudulent Sixers. The Bulls, the Bulls aren't going to be good, and then the Nets are not good. I'm saying 3-0. We're going to start great.
Beautiful. I'm going to predict 3-0 as well. This has been a lot of fun. Kyle, appreciate you joining on. Looking forward to yet another season podcasting with you, covering the team. You can find all our coverage of Brewhoop pre-game, during game, post-game, Monday morning media roundup, Wednesday weekly wrap-up. Follow us on social media, like, subscribe, YouTube, podcasts, everywhere you can find audio stuff. We're there. We appreciate you listening, and we will talk to you again once the season's begun very soon.